Welcome back to the Interact Post. Today, Article 16 will include us going over and discussing leaks related to Genshin, specifically the banner for 4.6, Arlecchino's suspected kit, new skins for 4.8, and even speculation on what Murata, the Pyro Archon, looks like. Like always, with all the info we have found, you can find yourself. We are not beta testers and have no inside information. We will be using various sources that everyone does have access to, so go ahead and take a peek for yourselves as well. Now with all that out of the way, onto the video. By the way, it will just be me today, so just Vixen, no Ryft. Ryft is kind of feeling a little bit under the weather, so that is a little bit of an issue for him, so, make sure to hope that he gets better soon. He should be here for the next video at the end of the week. So now we're just going to go right into video, and the first thing I do want to bring up is looking at some actual stuff for the 4.6 banner. Now, looking at this, we've kind of talked in the past, or at least maybe some other Interact posts, about what the kind of game plan is for the next multiple versions, but I do want to just park on the 4.6 banner specifically. We're getting more and more, I guess, definition and realization of what the actual banner for 4.6 is going to look like, and maybe some solidification with that as well. And looking specifically at Arlecchino and Nilou being on the first half, which is what we originally thought. We knew that there were going to be 4 characters, and they are the same 4 characters. We weren't exactly sure where they were going to be specifically staying, whether or not they were going to be kind of moved around. But now we've kind of seen a little bit more that it's a little bit more solidified that Arlecchino and Nilou are going to be on the first half, and then Furina and Alhaitham are going to be on the second half. What's really, really nice about this, at least for me, is that I know that Arlecchino is always going to be, the first phase because she's the new character, and usually the new characters are put as the first character anyways on these types of banners and stuff like that, so this makes a little bit more sense. And I'm really excited for the Furina reruns, and people who have missed her like myself are really going to be looking forward to that. I know Nilou's a very good character that most people want as well, and Alhaitham is just a really solid Dendro DPS, especially if you already have, Nahida or, even Baiju as well. He's just really a really good and really solid Dendro DPS, and he can really carry a lot of characters very far, even by using something like Harbinger of Dawn to really make a very easy path into the late game for some early players, and he does really well for late game players as well. The first phase in general, obviously with Arlecchino and Nilou, is just going to be really nice. I know Arlecchino's a little bit more focused on the idea of getting, overload going, and, this makes, a little bit of a noise maybe that she's maybe a little bit paired, and I know a lot of people are going to think about doing Vaporize with her or whatnot, but it seems like she's going to be more overload focused, and so having Arlecchino and Furina might be a really cool idea to have them pretty close for a Vape team, which they, she can still probably do pretty well in, but I think that, obviously, maybe looking on the 4 stars on this specific banner, I think will give us a little bit more of a better idea of when actually, or who's actually going to really be a solid banner to pull on. But I do think that especially that second phase, having Furina and Alhaitham on that banner is just going to be a really solid banner. Furina is just a very goated Archon, especially right now. And then Alhaitham's just a solid DPS like I was talking about earlier. Looking at the next leak, I do want to talk about Arlecchino's specific kit. Now, this has been something I've been looking forward to for a very long time. I'm a big fan of Arlecchino, and I've wanted her for a very long time. And so, really getting more ideas of what her kit actually is really interesting. Now, I do want to say that a lot of people have given a hindrance to this specifically and said that this is a fake leak, and a lot of people have gone the opposite direction in the days following, saying the complete opposite, that this is a real leak. And I would just say to really just go with this idea of following it with a little and taking it with a little bit of a grain of salt. So I'm going to go over it, but just keep in mind this is obviously heavily subject to change, especially since we haven't even gotten to 4.5 yet. Looking at her passive, it seems like Arlecchino has a special kind of overload reaction, so keep that in mind. And like I was talking about, she's going to be an overload character, it seems like. So maybe just focus on that this is really going to be something she's focused in. The first passive is going to be after an overload reaction that she creates, the damage reaction will be increased for a few seconds. And when HP is below a certain level, the recovery time of elemental skill will be reduced by a few seconds. So basically she's going to have her cooldown, I'm going to guess, probably reduced by multiple seconds, so that she can probably pop her elemental skill more consistently. And that may be tied into more damage, it may be tied into just constant changes in what she can do. It seems like she has some shape differences in a second, which I'll go over as well in a second. Her second passive states that she will get an elemental explosion level +1. And this is a little bit of a weird leak specifically because it doesn't really give a very good idea of what the explosion level is. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this is a little bit more tied to her burst. And so she's going to have a +1 to her burst. Now, if you can kind of think of it like this, if you crowned your Arlecchino at, or any character, they would be crowned at 10. Now, if you got them to a C3 or a C5, then obviously you would get +3 to that. So the max you can get right now to a specific talent level is 13. But if you actually get, someone like Child, he can actually get his specific level who maxes out at 10 because he doesn't get that buff from his constellations of the +3. He actually has a +1 already put in his kit, so he can actually hit a max level of 11. Now, if Arlecchino's constellations can bump her up +3 with, let's say, her burst, she can get the crown 10 plus the 3, that's 13 like normal. And with this passive, she'll actually be the first character to hit a +14, I believe. So that's kind of cool and really interesting to just get a lot more damage from her. Looking at her elemental skill, it states that when she enters, or she's going to enter, into a special form which quickly consumes HP. When HP drops below a certain threshold though, Arlecchino will go out of shape for a few seconds. Now it seems like this is very similar to kind of something that is focused on losing a bunch of HP, which really works well with someone like Farina and a lot of things that are happening with Fontaine right now. And so then it seems like she'll get a lot of damage capabilities out of this, and maybe something like Hu Tao where, she loses the HP and then gets more damage, and when she drops her HP or whatever. So keep that in mind, as well as her burst states that her elemental burst charges depending on Arlecchino's form, kind of like Child. So basically her skill can go into the two different shapes or the two different versions or forms, and she's going to have a formless and an inform. Her formless is going to deal damage to a specific single target, and then when she's on a different form or inform, she'll inflict AoE area damage. So it's kind of like switching between the two skills from Child or Tartaglia, how he can go from, the dual blades into, when he's with his bow, he can use his ult that will then do one huge, bow shot, but if he's using his blades, then it turns into a huge polearm that he can swipe using his ult. And I think this is going to be very similar. It'll probably be that very similar effect where she's going to have a single target hit and then she's going to have an AoE hit, so just keep that in mind. It seems like a really, really cool idea though, and her constellations are going to probably buff a lot of overload reactions as well, so I really, really am excited to see how she can open up the overload reaction a little bit more, as well as considering we have Chevreuse and how she can work with some other Pyro and some other Electro characters as well that we already have in the game. The next speculation I want to go over is looking at the new skins that we possibly are going to get in 4.8. We've gotten already a few skins from the Lantern Rite, and then 4.8 is going to come out with some possible new skins. And these skins are a little rough, especially for my taste as well, but it's going to be Albedo, Sucrose, and Amber. Once again, these could change, and so keep that in mind, but the instance here is a little bit difficult because Albedo is a very specific type of character that I don't believe a lot of players have or really consistently like to use, especially with the quote-unquote meta that we're in right now. I think he's a really, really good 5-star, but I just think that right now he's going to be a little bit different, and it doesn't seem like any of these are going to be 5-star skins as well, so still Diluc is going to have the only 5-star skin, so that's a little bit of an annoyance. But as well as Sucrose getting one, I'm sure there are plenty of Sucrose lovers, so that may be probably the only thing that's great from these new skins in 4.8. And then Amber is going to be getting a skin as well, which, I mean, if you're an Amber lover, that's great, but it doesn't seem like there's too many Amber stands right now, so getting an Amber skin is a little bit rough, but I do think that, having an Albedo skin and Sucrose and Amber just in general, getting to see more skins in the game is really, really good, and seeing the consistency of us getting skins every few versions has really helped a little bit more of us getting more skins, and it kind of helps us in the future get more skins for more characters. So I'm at least excited of the idea of getting a consistent more amount of skins so that we can get more in the future. The next thing I want to go over is looking at the, different maybe possible Dragon Sovereign, looking at the Pyro Archon, looking at some of the Lantern Rite stuff in next year, looking at some future characters that might be playable. There's a lot of leaks that are kind of going around with this, so I kind of want to condense this and try to talk about it as quickly as possible. First, the Pyro Archon, I do want to talk about how she is basically described, at least from speculation, as a younger version of Himeko, so the character from Star Rail, with white skin, or at least maybe some sort of a lighter tanned skin. So not exactly the darker skin type of idea like we were thinking originally. She's going to have exposed shoulders and exposed thighs, kind of like Raiden, I believe, as well. And then she's going to be focused obviously as a main DPS as a character, making her the strongest Archon probably in terms of combat, considering that she is based heavily off of combat. The whole idea behind Natlan is like it's constant wars and constant this and that. And it's basically known that she's the idea of like almost a bloodthirsty Archon. So keep that in mind specifically when, thinking and possibly trying to think about getting the Natlan Archon. She's most likely going to be a DPS. Next, I want to talk about a character named Shibalanche, and I'm pretty sure that that's how it's stated, at least in the Mandarin. And he's going to be depicted, at least from, once again, a lot of speculation, as a tall, younger male, kind of like Alhaitham. And he's probably going to be the Pyro Dragon Sovereign, or possibly along those lines in terms of strength. So we know how strong Nervalette is, and Nervalette is the Dragon Sovereign for the Hydro element, and so seeing how strong he is, being the strongest DPS in the game right now, if Shibalanche is going to be the strongest, support or whatever, it seems like that's going to be really, really good, and he's obviously the Dragon Sovereigns are already extremely goated, so that's something to look forward to, as well as there's a character that's been going around, the Goth Girl, or I've seen even her just labeled M. And so that's a 4-star character that a lot of people are looking forward to as well. Madame Ping is the character I was talking about that's going to be in the next Lantern Rite, and it seems like she might be playable in the next Lantern Rite, and I know that's a hot minute away, but it looks like she might deal or wield a Dendro Polearm, and she's talked about as a tall female model. It might be something similar to Cloud Retainer where there's a change in how she looks and whatnot, but if you need a picture of Cloud Retainer, I'll probably throw one up on the screen. There are also rumors talking about Zhao getting a limited 5-star weapon prior to the next Lantern Rite, and this is going to keep me happy because looking at Primordial Jadewing Spear specifically, if you look at how Primordial is actually built for Zhao, it's a high attack main stat or base attack. It's got a low amount of crit rate, which he already ascends into, and then all the ability does is really just when you hit something, it increases your attack and then it has a max amount of stacks. Now, the issue here is that if you look at something like Lighter Foliar Incision for Alhaitham, it's extremely based off of getting a bunch of crit damage, obviously, has a good amount of attack, but its ability is giving a bunch more damage to normal attacks and elemental skills, which is Alhaitham's main way of damage, and increasing those based on elemental mastery, which is another huge thing that you want to have on your Alhaitham. And then if you look at Tome of the Eternal Flow, or any other characters, Tome of the Eternal Flow is Nervalette's weapon, that extremely helps Nervalette specifically with what he does in his damage. I think Zhao's weapon is a little bit more of a mainstream weapon, and it doesn't necessarily focus too heavily on him specifically. If anything, his artifact set, Vermilion Hereafter, is way more useful probably than Primordial Jadewing Spear sometimes. There are leaks as well talking about Capitano having problems with the Pyro Archon and how I believe the Gnosis is already gone at this point, and the Unknown God might show up as well, and the Travelers might be fighting the Pyro Archon or fighting the Unknown God or Capitano. There's just a huge triangle here where everybody's hating on everybody else, so that should be really interesting to come out and see, as well as there's talks about Puccinella making an appearance for some odd reason, and everybody, I think, just wants to kick him in like a field goal right through the uprights, so no one really wants to see him around anymore, so I think there's no love lost there, really. But getting to see more stuff for Natlan, I think, is really exciting, considering we are getting, or maybe we're at least past the halfway point for Fontaine, so looking at Natlan stuff, I think, is becoming more and more fun, at least for me. The last thing I want to bring up is looking at Murata. There have been a lot of speculations. There was a chibi thing thrown up not too long ago about what she looked like. It seems like that's a little bit different than really what is looked like, at least, and from a lot of leaks, someone threw up a specific picture that looked very, very like a very good idea for a character. Does look like a tanned version of Himeko and follows a lot of the leaks of what she actually looks like. This was thrown out obviously as just an idea, just a throw up of what actually this person thought the character was. They stated that it wasn't necessarily anything crazy, but it did give us a good idea of what she looks like and at least something to look forward to. It looks like she's going to be the tall female model like we looked at, and with the red flowing hair that's very, akin to a lot of people that come from Natlan. I would say that she looks like at least is going to be a great character for a lot of people, and actually has a lot of the similar traits that a lot of Genshin characters are going to have, so I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they exactly do here, and I'm sure that we're going to get more pictures and probably some more models in the future of what she actually looks like, and maybe a little bit more hints from the actual game, from probably the rest of at least the Fontaine era. Well, that's everything we have for this week. There is nothing really else going on too much, but I was really excited to really bring out the idea of looking forward to Murata, as well as specifically, Arlecchino, as she's going to be coming up closer, and looking at some different events and whatnot of what's going to happen in the future. So I'm really excited to see what's going to be happening there. But if you guys have maybe some thoughts or some speculations of what you guys think is going to be happening in the future, please do put a comment down below. I love reading through them and going through them. It's really exciting to see what they could actually do in the future with this game. So go ahead and leave a comment down below. If you do like our content and you have come back multiple times, please go ahead and like and subscribe. And if you're already coming back multiple times, you might as well subscribe anyways. And make sure to throw on the notification bell so that you guys don't miss any future content. Now, that's kind of everything we have for this week. So I'll see you guys in the next one.